For regular videos on ancient cultures and forgotten civilizations, please subscribe. The sponsor of today's video is Skillshare, an online learning community with thousands of great classes geared towards personal growth and development. And as the name suggests, learning new skills. New premium classes are launched every week. When you first join, you'll be asked what subjects interest you. But there are all kinds of subjects available. Are you a student? There's a course here on exactly how to study for an exam. Maybe you like photography and illustration, or graphic design, or gardening, or just self-care and relaxation. There's something here for everybody. Did you know they have all kinds of language courses? And check this one out. Learning the Ancient Latin Language with Marcus M. Ancient Language. This is a course after our own hearts. Now, below this video is a link, and the first 1,000 people to click on that link will get 1 month free trial of Skillshare. So, it's a great time to take advantage of this opportunity. Hey, I was just listening to my voicemails, and I think you might be interested in this one.
Hi, my name is Patrick and I live in Germany. I love your programs, especially but not limited to when you take apart fact versus fiction in art history. I don't remember if you've ever done a piece on Tartessos, but what I'd really be interested in is learning more about what scientific consensus tells us about what Bronze Age Spain was actually like. As a layman, I feel like my knowledge of the history of Spain only really starts with the Punic Wars onwards, and I'd like to close that gap, but don't really know where to start. Thanks.
And thank you for your question, Patrick. Let me give you a little background on the Iberian Peninsula. During the Late Bronze and Early Iron Age, it was actively inhabited by an immense variety of peoples. A big shift happened in the 11th century BCE when Indo-European peoples of Celtic origin started arriving in the region. But they left the earlier Iberian peoples, still culturally in the Bronze Age, practically intact in the south and west. During the first millennium BCE, there was intense contact, especially in the east and south of the peninsula, between these indigenous peoples and colonizing peoples from the eastern Mediterranean, Phoenicians, Greeks, and Carthaginians. So dozens of different groups are known to have coexisted in Iberia during the first millennium BCE. These groups can be divided into 4 major linguistic groups. Broadly speaking, following ethnic linguistic criteria, there were the pre-Indo-European Iberian peoples, which are commonly called simply the Iberians, the Aquitani, or Proto-Vascan peoples, who were precursors to the Basques. They were pre-Indo-European like the Iberians, while culturally they are more similar to the people of northern Spain and southwestern France. The Turdetani people, who may be connected to the Tartessians, and the Indo-European peoples, the Celtic people, who came from Eastern Europe originally, and one of their divisions entered the Iberian Peninsula through the Pyrenees Mountains in search of lands where they could settle. This occurred from the end of the 11th century to the end of the 6th century BCE. The level of technological development of these varied groups of Indo-European people, the Celt-Iberians as they are often called, was relatively lower than those of the Iberian South, although with a lot of disparity between them. Now let's talk about the foreign colonies. At the end of the 2nd millennium BCE, the Phoenicians founded their first colonies in the south of the peninsula, among which Gadir, modern Cadiz, stands out. The Greeks arrived on the Iberian Peninsula around the 7th century BCE, although their activities are not well documented until the 6th century BCE. They founded colonial enclaves, including Emporion and Mainake, from where they established commercial and cultural contacts with neighboring indigenous peoples. The Carthaginians, who had themselves once been a Phoenician colony, arrived later, between the 6th and 5th centuries BCE, and they created colonies such as New Carthage, Cartagena. The Phoenicians, Greeks, and Carthaginians had reached a degree of technical development beyond that of the peoples of the Western Mediterranean, while at the same time they found in that region increasingly scarce and expensive raw materials. Metals such as silver, gold, copper, and tin encouraged them to venture further and further west. Within the Western Mediterranean, the area of greatest interest in terms of obtaining metals was the south of the Iberian Peninsula, both for its mines and for its position as a crossroads and exit of the Atlantic routes, especially to the north towards Galicia and the British Isles through the Strait of Gibraltar. The south of the peninsula was rich in copper, gold, and silver, and was strategically located on the tin route. So the south was chosen to found commercial establishments. As I mentioned earlier, this was the area inhabited by the so-called Iberian peoples, and they were the ones influenced by the colonizing peoples. They maintained an agricultural and livestock exploitation based on cereals, which in some areas was diversified with olive trees and even included irrigation. Mining was the basis of a metallurgy of bronze, iron, and precious metals, highly demanded by the colonizing peoples. The commercial development of surpluses, which included the use of currency, stimulated social hierarchization and the formation of an aristocratic warrior elite, which demanded imported luxury goods to consolidate its prestige. Locally, artistic programs of a certain sophistication were developed, and alphabets of Phoenician or Greek origin were used for the writing of some texts. Pliny the Elder's description of the Hispanic southeast coast is full of praise.
Immediately after Italy, and excepting the fabulous regions of India, I must place Hispania, at least all its coastal border. It is, Hispania, indeed, poor in part, but where it is fertile, it produces in abundance cereals, oil, wine, horses, and metals of all kinds, in which Gaul is on a par. But Hispania beats it for the esparto grass of her deserts, and for the specular stone, for the beauty of her dyes, for her spirit for work, for her strong slaves, for the endurance of her men, and for her vehement heart.
Greek historians recorded the existence of the people of Tartessos in this area, whose wealth was based on agriculture, livestock, fishing, the exploitation of the copper mines, and control of tin from the Atlantic route. We have a plethora of Greco-Roman sources, but they remain shrouded in mythical mysteries. They are confused and contradictory. The philosopher Aristotle refers to Tartessos as a river. The Greek geographer Strabo concurs, and he declares that the ancients knew the river Guadalquivir, the Great River, under the name of Tartessos. So does Pausanias. On the other hand, the Roman writer Aviennius identifies Tartessos as a rich city, protected by walls and supplied by a river. In his impressions, Appian affirms that Tartessos was a city on the coast that in his time was known as Carpessus, but there is no consensus in classical works about the nature of Tartessos, whether it was a region, a kingdom, a city, or a river. Semitic sources may refer to this culture when they use the name Tarshish, which is characterized by its metalliferous wealth and which is related to Phoenician navigation. One of the myths that deals with Tartessos and inserted this culture in the Greek imagination is the labors of Heracles, more specifically, the stealing of the cattle of Geryon, a giant that lived on the island of Erythea, which was believed to be off the southern coast of Iberia. Later writers link this island with Tartessos. According to Herodotus, Arganthonius was a monarch who reigned over Tartessos for 80 years and lived to be 120. This is the first we have of historical references from Greek sources about it. According to Herodotus, the Phocaeans, who are a Greek city from Asia Minor, upon their arrival in Tartessos, befriended Arganthonius. Such was the bond between Tartessians and Greeks that the king invited them to leave Ionia to settle in Iberia. In another passage, when he learned that the Medes were increasing their power in the east, he financed the construction of walls around Phocaea. The only certain data are the repeated references to a civilization located beyond the Pillars of Heracles, today called the Strait of Gibraltar, which stood out for its wealth, both in agriculture and in metals. Even the name Arganthonius, which means literally silver man, is probably not a real name, but rather related to silver and for Tartessos' commercial activity. Also notable are the references to the constitution of a hierarchical society there, in which the nobles did not work. There's very little information related to their religion, but it is presumed that, like other Mediterranean peoples, they also had a polytheistic religion. It is believed that they could have worshipped a goddess similar to the Phoenician goddess Astarte. There could also have been a male deity similar to the Phoenician god Baal or Melkart. Sanctuaries of Phoenician style were found in the archaeological site of Castulo. Several votive offerings were discovered in various parts of Andalusia and in other more distant parts like Salamanca that are of unknown origin. In the southwestern area of the peninsula, archaeologically speaking, where we expect Tartessos to be, the region known as Tertitania, close to the mouth of the Guadalquivir River, developed significantly during the first half of the first millennium BCE. But the archaeological verification is problematic, given the radical geographical transformation of the environment at that time and the intense occupation of all the urban centers by the civilizations that followed. Whether or not a city of Tartessos existed, it is unlikely that it was the capital of a state of large territorial dimensions. If it was, it's impossible to determine what its effective territory would have been. Would it have been limited to the riverside cities and the urban, rural, and metallurgical centers of the lower Guadalquivir? Or would it have extended its influence further inland as far as Cordoba? The discovery of Troy, Mycenae, and Knossos by analyzing the works of classical authors encouraged a German professor, Adolf Schulten, to search for the location of the city of Tartessos in the southwest of the Iberian Peninsula. Through reading ancient sources, such as the poem Ora Maritima by Aviennius, Schulten concluded that the mythical city was to be located in Cerro del Trigo, also known as Doñana. In 1926, he conducted archaeological excavations at the site. However, he only managed to locate a Roman fishing village. Schulten's view has proved untenable, but his work did help chip at some of the prejudices about the history of Tartessos, encouraging the study of this legendary place. Some people doubt whether I would ever give credence to legendary stories about lost civilizations, but when the conclusions are reasonable, I do. And the existence of Tartessos is an example of that. Although absolute verification is not there, and I would not at this point go so far as to say it definitely existed, I do think it's reasonable to suppose its existence because it fits the historical context. A good case has been made that modern Huelva was once Tartessos. Material evidence there shows that there were silver mines, and that by the late Bronze Age, silver extraction reached industrial proportions there. Foreign materials have also been found there, suggesting that the harbor of Huelva was a major trading hub visited by peoples of many lands. Anyway, after the Battle of Eulalia, the Greek-Carthaginian conflict over control of the western Mediterranean that took place in the waters of Corsica in 537 BCE, Tartessos disappears from the written sources as an existing civilization, and the material culture of the area of Tartessian influence enters a stage of decadence too. There are many theories trying to explain this, from external causes like a supposed imposition of Carthaginian territorial colonization, which would have destroyed Tartessos' political entity, to endogenous causes like the gradual exhaustion of the veins of tin, the decline of the Phoenician colonial trade, the rupture of the overland tin route, which got controlled by the Greeks of Massalia and would have led the cultures there back to an almost exclusively agricultural and livestock economy, to the technological change from bronze to iron. Nevertheless, the Tertitani, the people who inhabited the area when the Romans arrived, were still seen as the richest and most culturally developed of the entire peninsula. I hope that answered your question. It was a good one. And if you, viewer, would like to have a question answered in a video, you can submit one on my voicemail at speakpipe.com/David Miano. And if you'd like to support this channel, the best way to do that is to become a patron at patreon.com/World of Antiquity. Alternately, you can press the super thanks button.
You might like my little e-booklet, Why Ancient History Matters. It's designed to persuade people that the subject is important, even in the modern world. You might also wish to use it to help spread the word. So feel free to share it with someone you know. It's free for anyone who wants it. I've left a link in the description box below the video for you to grab a copy. Catch you later.